For those of us just starting out on our oil painting journey, we know all too well how easy it is to focus on what is not going right. It's easy for us to focus on the techniques that we haven't mastered yet, or it's easy for us to get frustrated when oil paint sometimes feels like it does the exact opposite thing of what we want it to do. We can get frustrated that what we envision in our minds is just not coming out on the canvas. But I'm here to remind you, as well as myself, that there are benefits to being a new painter that we may never end up getting back again. So I created a list of the 5 best things about being a new painter. If you're new here, my name is Spencer. I'm an artist in Southern California. And on this channel, I am posting everything about my art journey, doing live paintings, some tutorials, and just documenting the process so that way I can look back and see how I've improved. If that sounds interesting to you, then I would love it if you would subscribe to this channel. Okay, so with no specific order, here are the 5 best things about being a new painter. Number 1 is that every painting feels like a discovery. Every brushstroke, every color mix, every new texture you create, the first time you blend colors into a smooth gradient and the first time you layer glazes and see that they actually glow. And once you have mastered the techniques that you need in order to achieve the style that you are going for, I can only imagine that the sense of discovery becomes at least few and far between. I don't think it like fully will ever go away, right? Because within each new painting, even if you're a master, I'm sure like something happens that is surprising. But I would think that it doesn't happen as often, because when you're just starting out, I mean, even just trying to figure out how to mix a certain color and realizing that adding too much white will decrease the chroma. And sometimes to make things brighter, you don't actually need to add white. You just need to add more of the lighter value color. You know, like this is just, I'm rambling here, but this is what I mean. Like you make those discoveries and you make them fast and you make them often. So being a new painter is like the beginning of a road trip before you have been in it for several hours and now you just want to get to the destination. The second reason why being a new painter is just the best, and I think this is my personal favorite one, is that you're not locked in to a niche, you're not locked into a style, you're not locked into a subject. It kind of goes hand in hand with a sense of discovery. Like one day you wake up and you decide, hey, I want to paint a pet. I want to paint a dog. And the next day you say to yourself, I want to do a still life. 2 days later, you say, I want to do a portrait. You try anything and everything under the sun to figure out what it is that you like to paint and how you like to paint it. When you look at an established artist's website or their Instagram, their portfolio, you will notice a very consistent style, sometimes a very consistent subject matter. And one of the tellings of a beginner painter, such as myself, is that when you look at my Instagram, it's all over the place, not just in the terms of the subject matter, but also in the terms of the way I am painting. Sometimes it's super loose, other times it's very tight. And it is an absolute joy and something that I think is a luxury to try and find the balance between that loose and tight style that will eventually become my own, which will be amazing and wonderful when I get there. But again, I think it's so important to cherish and realize the luxury that we have as new painters, that we're not locked in to a certain niche, a certain subject. We don't have these commissions that we have to keep painting in this certain way. And we are in the middle of that journey and we get to do exactly what we want to do that day. Don't get me wrong. I think that painting should kind of be like that all of the time. Like I think even if you are a pet portrait artist, you know, I think it's important to keep painting other things, but I'm just trying to say that I think as new painters, you explore and you experiment way more than somebody who has found their style and is locked in to their subject matter and their niche and all of that. Moving on to the third best thing about being a new painter, which is that your mistakes will teach you far more than your success ever will. I don't believe that there is a painter out there who has never had one of their pieces of art go muddy on them, or who has had their paint behave in a way that they didn't expect. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that new painters, and probably every painter, unless they're some kind of prodigy, has gone through a season of immense failures. Failures over and over and over again. But it is by experiencing these failures that we end up seeing exponential growth in our skill and our technique. When your painting goes muddy, you have probably looked up, why is my paint getting muddy? Or how to prevent oil paints from getting muddy. And you figure out what it was. Maybe you weren't cleaning your brush off between colors. Maybe you were mixing your light values with your dark values and not cleaning off your brush. That's basically the same thing. I just keep on saying not cleaning off your brush. But eventually you figure it out. And because you make so many mistakes in the beginning, your growth is just skyrocketing. And eventually the growth, I believe, will slow down. And when that happens, in order to improve, you can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again. You can't just keep painting the apple or the orange over and over again. And you'll have to do something else, try a new style in order to find new growth. But as beginner painters, that new growth comes intuitively. Intuitively, is that the right word? Intuitively? It comes with the practice of painting, which kind of leads me into the fourth best thing about being a new painter, which is that every new painting feels like an improvement. Or in my case, every painting feels like an improvement, but then like every third or fourth feels like 2 steps back. But then when I step forward again, it's like 5 paces forward. 5 steps forward. As a new painter, it is so satisfying to see where you were at in your first portrait in comparison to your portrait 5 months down the road. And you get to experience this with multiple paintings. Like maybe your portraits have improved, but you're still trying to figure out what you like to paint, what you love to paint the most. So then you also get to see that same type of improvement from your first landscape painting in comparison to your 5th landscape painting. Once you have mastered the techniques or you're a master painter, it's not like I don't think that you see improvement, but again, I just think it's one of those things that slows down. And especially when you get locked into your niche, like you have this vision in your mind of what your painting is going to look like, and probably for the most part you can execute it and you can, have it look the way you intended with little bits of surprises along the way. But when you're a new painter, it sometimes feels like you're on step 1 and then all of a sudden you're at step 6 without ever even having to go through 2, 3, 4, and 5. Do you relate? Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay, and last but certainly not least, the 5th best part about being a new painter is it feels like you see the world with new eyes. I know that you've probably heard that a dozen times, but I have really come to find that it is true. When you start painting and you start seeing the way that light refracts and all of that, and you go out on a walk, you notice the difference in the colors between the morning and midday. You notice the shift of the shade on the building under the awning. Even when you're not actively painting, you are learning, because you just end up seeing the world so differently around you. And you think to yourself, you see something beautiful and you think to yourself, oh, I'd love to paint that. And you don't just think I would love to paint that and make it look exactly like that, but how can I give my representation of what I'm seeing? So I know it's kind of cheesy saying that you see the world with different eyes, but I really do think it's true. I have experienced it myself. If you're a new painter, I can only imagine that you have experienced it as well. I know that all of us as new painters practice and we try to develop our style and we try to get to a certain destination where we feel confident with our brushwork and all of that. But I think it's so important to realize the season that you are in as a new painter and to cherish it, to realize that it is a luxury. And there are certain things about being a new painter that you will never get back. So enjoy the process and don't just think about the destination. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.